Hey there, everybody. This is Kristin from Teaching Balance, and I'm here with you with this week's mindfulness meditation practice. And we are in the final week of June, the month of holding space. And for our final practice, I was actually thinking about this. It was all kind of inspired by my morning this morning, where two things happened. My personal practice, I decided to do something that's a little bit of a throwback, and I'm going to work that into, or really like base our practice this week on that. I'll explain that in a little bit. But the other thing that I noticed was an interest this morning in really just seeking silence. And so that is actually the theme or the invitation for this week, is holding space for silence. Now, my specific experience this morning was sitting on my front porch, and I had breakfast, and I was just drinking some coffee and had music on inside, kind of so that I could hear it outside. And what I realized is that even though I was really enjoying listening to the music previously, like making breakfast and all of that, I really found myself interested in having a little bit more quiet as I was just sitting and drinking my coffee and eventually reading. And so it's just a nice reminder of the value of less sensory input, in particular, of course, in this case, being audible types of sensory input. And so, how this could look for you this week can take many forms. One is anytime that you typically would have or would make the choice to have some sort of background sound in your environment. So many people I know like to have the television on, even if they're not actively listening to it. They just like the sound of whatever the programming might be, whether it's news or something like that. A lot of people like having the radio, even if it's talk radio or music or any other kind of music playing in the background. And I'm definitely one of those people. I really like that. I feel that it enriches my environment and gives me a lot of joy. And I also think that there is value to having moments of cultivated silence, curated silence, I guess you could say, where you're very aware of the fact that you don't have that typical background music or sound that you commonly do. And another way that this, I think, really is clear from my experience is listening to things in the car, whether you're going to and from somewhere, whatever it might be. And so that's my invitation to you, because when we look back on this month of holding space, we're holding space for a variety of things, much of which we haven't even begun to scratch the surface of. But the idea is that you're giving yourself these pockets of stillness, these pockets of silence, these pockets of spaciousness within which to just, a weird word is coming to my mind, like to foment, meaning to give something the opportunity to emerge. Because when we're constantly inundated and consumed with taking in sensory information and processing our thoughts, there isn't much room for various insights and qualities of peace and serenity to emerge. So that is my invitation to you. Now, what is this going to look like for our practice today? I mentioned earlier that I did a little bit of a throwback practice this morning, and that is what I used to do when I would just meditate by myself. Is I would set a timer, and I have my timer here with me, just like I typically do, without anything in the background. Lately, I've been kind of doing more like guided meditations, but this is just the timer, and as a way to make it feel more manageable. I know many of you, of course, are very experienced and don't necessarily have any concerns in that regard, but sometimes 10 minutes of complete silence feels somewhat endless. And so when I first started out, what I would do is set my timer so that for 10 minutes, there would be a single bell every 2 minutes. And so I think I'd like to give that a try with you guys today. So I'm actually not going to be doing any talking. Other than if I'm feeling deeply inspired to do so, because of course we are talking about holding space for silence. And so I'm going to get this all set up, because this does actually have a starting bell, which we usually don't do either. So before I hit that bell, go ahead and just find your meditation posture, sitting or if you're lying down in a way that feels supportive and relaxed, but still attentive, still awake and alert, but not tense or tight. And you guys know the drill, closing your eyes or lowering your gaze. And then once that bell rings, I'm going to invite you, if you haven't already, to begin with 3 deep breaths. So let's go ahead and get started. is our 10 minutes. So just to restate, the invitation for this week is just to play with bringing in a little bit of silence wherever you might otherwise have brought in some sound. Like I said, it could be when you're doing chores, it can be when you're driving, even when you take a walk. A lot of people listen to music or podcasts or audiobooks when they walk or exercise. So just playing with that. And if you just absolutely hate it, then don't worry about it. Don't do it. But you may find that it does have a tendency to, I think, just change the dynamic of your experience for that short period of time. So, as always, thank you so much for taking this time for yourself. Thank you so much for allowing me to accompany you on this journey, and I will see you next week. Take care. Bye.